Hello, fight fans. It is Saturday, January 22nd, and we are on the eve of UFC Greenville. Renato Moicano versus Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie versus the Vampire. I thought that Renato Moicano kind of looked like a vampire, so I thought, how fun is that? The vampire versus the zombie, right? Let's go with it. I'm Micah Fights with Friends. Make sure and hit that subscribe button so you're notified whenever I go live or post a new video. I go live for every major UFC event, pretty much every major Bellator and boxing event. First, let's go into, I had a UFC lock of the month. A pick the first time I was calling it the lock of the month, and now a lot of people online are calling it the curse of the month, because of course we had a rematch. Rob Font, the plus 180 underdog, as you can see in the top right hand corner of the screen, and he was going to be taking on John Lineker, minus 230 favorite, despite taking that fight on 3 weeks notice, just hours after me making my lock of the month. John Lineker had to pull out. Apparently he had a cut in training, like above his front eye or something like that. So very unfortunate. Let's jump into the fights that actually are happening. Alessio Di Chirico comes into this a 180 underdog against Kevin Holland. I think this is a fairly even match, but as even as the odds makers have it. I agree with him on this one. Won 3 of 5 in the UFC, has Alessio. 2 of those wins were by split decision, though. So to play devil's advocate, I mean, generally he could be, he could be 3-2. He could also be 1-4. So it could be 2-3 or 1-4. Excuse me. Had a knockout knee win over Bung Boyce, and then a loss, went the distance with Bojan Vlčević. So I mean that's a feather in his cap for sure. And then some of those split decision victories. I mean, you can learn a lot about yourself in those victories. He's gonna need to learn a lot, I believe, from his last few fights to have a chance against his opponent, though. The trailblazer, Kevin Holland, 26 years old, comes into this out of Dana White Contender Series, of course, and this guy has impressed me up to this point. He left Bellator on a victory. Tremendous triangle choke. This guy had just invaluable experience beginning his career, though. Fought Rafael Lovato Jr. at just 22 years old. Guy who's a very top prospect in Bellator right now. Impressive victory over Will Santiago Jr. On Dana White Contender Series. His only loss was to top contender and the guy that will be fighting for the title against John Jones for the July weekend, the Hammer, Thiago Santos. I just see so many things riding in the favor of Kevin Holland that I got to take him on that one. And I feel pretty secure in that one, to be honest. So let's go into what is now probably the co-main event of the evening. Randy Rude Boy Brown, he comes into this a plus 205 underdog, which had a lot of people a bit miffed. I'm not so sure those odds are way off, but I believe his last fight maybe weighing him down a little bit unnecessarily because he was winning a fight against Nico Price, which I was in the crowd in Boise, Idaho, actually. Randy Brown was winning that fight fairly easily when from his back, Nico Price became the first guy in modern UFC history to knock a guy off from his back, knock him out, actually. So I feel like he was winning that fight, probably would have won it. He's got a few good names on here. Mickey Gall, Brian Camozzi, submission over Eric Montano. He finishes guys. As you can see in his 3 wins, he's got 2 finishes. Couldn't finish Gall, but went the distance with Bilal Muhammad. That's a big deal. And like I said, I mean, hindsight is 2020, and I can't take anything away from Nico Price, but he definitely was losing that fight. Could be 4-1 at this point. But Brian Barberena, this guy, minus 265 favorite coming into this one, coming off an absolute war and candidate for fight of the year. Against Vicente Luque. Also took on Jake Ellenberger, knocked him out in 2 minutes and 26 seconds. Sorry for the sloppy transition there, but here's the last 5 fights of Barberena. The other one was Randy Brown. You see he's lost 3 of 5 in the UFC, and you might think, man, that's kind of, why are you so big on this guy, Mike? That's kind of a red flag. But they were all against top opponents. This guy really got thrown into the fire. Colby Covington out of the gate. Leon Edwards went the distance with. And then just a dramatic war against Vicente Luque, which I think he won a lot of fans, even in a loss in that fight of the night. Knocked out Jake Ellenberger. First round, 2 minutes and 26 seconds. I'm actually with the odds makers on this one. Maybe they could be a little closer, but I'm taking Barberena all day on this one. And that, guys, gets us into the main event of the evening. Chan Zhang Zhang, the Korean Zombie, comes into this, a plus 165 underdog, as you can see over there in the right-hand corner. Coming off, of course, a devastating loss. Got to be emotionally devastating, which he said he was embarrassed and dishonored afterwards. He was winning a 25-minute fight every round, in my mind, up until the very last second when he walked into kind of a shovel elbow right on the chin from Yair Rodriguez on the 25-year anniversary of the UFC. And Yair Rodriguez gets one of the most incredible knockouts in UFC history in a fight. He's losing. Korean Zombie, I think he's very mentally tough. I think he can come back from that. His other loss in his last 5, of course, was to one of the greatest featherweights ever, Jose Aldo. Picked up an impressive first-round knockout over Dennis Bermudez. Submitted Dustin Poirier, who of course will be fighting for the title against Khabib Nurmagomedov on September 7th. Then he had a first-round 7-second knockout of Mark Hominick. That doesn't get much faster than that. Not much more to say about that, right? But Moicano here. Let's jump into him. Let's jump into his last 5. I didn't have my picture ready, but his last loss was to Jose Aldo. So that's their like opponent. They both got knocked out. Quality opponents, though. All 5 quality opponents went the distance, almost the distance of Brian Ortega. Ended up getting submitted in the 3rd round. got a victory over Jeremy Stevens, submitted Cub Swanson in the very first round, and defeated a very tough and I think underappreciated Calvin Kattar. This guy is very top contender. Both these guys are. This was a very hard one to pick for me, despite Moicano being pretty far ahead as far as the odds maker is concerned, and most of my peers, or a lot of my peers on YouTube, are picking Moicano. I'm going to go the other direction. I just think that the Korean Zombie, I think he has been in that deep water just more times than his opponent. I think Moicano is going to be very good, maybe even a future champion. But at this point, I think Rodriguez takes him, or excuse me, not Rodriguez, Freudian slip. Rodriguez just knocked the Korean Zombie out. But I think the Korean Zombie, Chan Jung Jung, takes him deep, wins either unanimous decision or a late stoppage. But I want to know what you guys think. First of all, make sure that you join me today at 3 p.m. Pacific, or 3:30 p.m. Pacific now, for this main card. We'll have trivia. It's an interactive fight companion, and a great MMA community. I think you guys will enjoy it. Make sure you're subscribed and ring that bell so you don't miss that notification. And let me know what you think about my picks. I'm curious what you think and what your picks are. As always, I love you. I respect you. And I'll see your fine asses later.